Okay then, so I promised HARAD, and HARAD it shall be. It's been kind of a long day, so bear with me. I'll set up the unit compositions for the enemies, and then we'll take a look at HARAD's army. Okay, so how good are HARAD? Well, honestly, I think I like HARAD a little bit more than maybe they deserve, because their power compared to, say, the other kingdoms of men, or even compared to their fellow Easterlings in Rune, is lacking a little bit at the high end, at least in most games. So we'll start off at the low tier infantry, and they have fairly expensive basic units, with the exception of these Haradrim spearmen, which are kind of, they're pretty terrible actually, mainly because they don't have enough units in the unit to make it worth buying them. There's only 151 of them, and they're not particularly good. Like, oftentimes these guys are going to be cannon fodder, so you just want them to be able to absorb as much damage as possible so your elite troops can get into the action, and these guys honestly aren't the best at that. So generally speaking, you're going to want to avoid stuff like the Haradrim spears and the Haradrim archers. These guys, I guess their range damage isn't terrible, but their overall range is not good, and they don't have any sort of armor, so it's a similar problem that the what was the unit? The longbows of Dale. You know, the longbowmen, however, do have the range to actually be fairly decent. These guys don't have the range, and they don't have the armor. So ultimately, I would say steer clear of these guys, even if they are very cheap. Then you have the Corsair units. They're basically slightly better. They'll do okay regarding doing damage, but the problem they have again is that there isn't enough in their unit, and they will often just be slaughtered by higher tier units, making them not really worth it as a meat shield or as a damage dealer. At least that's how it has seemed every time I've used these kind of units. Every other unit though, aside from the two Haradrim units and the two Corsair units, are pretty viable, I think, depending on what you use them for. The Hishari, for example, are very good at dealing damage. They do have a bonus in deserts that it says down there, and in woods, but deserts is a bonus you're not going to see a great deal of. I will be fighting in a desert this time, of course, because I'm going to be fighting on HARAD's home soil, but these guys, they tend to be kind of like the clan guard of Rune. Sometimes they'll do grievous damage to the enemy, but sometimes they really don't do much damage at all before being cut down. So it's kind of a double-edged sword with these guys. They're not overly expensive, so it often is kind of worth the risk. And a lot of HARAD's mid-tier stuff is actually pretty good value for money, so provided you use these carefully, they can often be a good unit to have in your army. What should we do next? I guess we'll do the Trollmen next. These guys are kind of like the men-at-arms of HARAD, and they do have decent stats, like you'll notice down there, and their hit points are fairly large, but you'll also notice that they don't have many men in their unit. So you need to be careful with regards to skirmishers, because naturally they're not the most well-armoured guys, despite the fact they do have pretty high hit points for an infantry unit. Again, these are a unit kind of like the Hishari, where you need to be careful with how you use them. Provided you get them into melee without them taking too much damage, they can do pretty well for themselves. Moving on to the two more elite polearm units, although elite might be a kind of relative term. First of all, you have the Southron Warband. These guys, compared to the Haradrim Spearmen, these are actually good value for money. They're pretty damn good spearmen for the price point. The only problem is they do share the downsides of all spears, so really these guys should only be used for sort of zoning out cav and in siege battles forming up skilltroms. Trying to attack heavy infantry with these guys is never going to go too well. And as for the Southron pikemen, these guys, again, decent pikes, very cheap pikes, but they seem to be, in my experience, good value for money, but ultimately if you get them into a quality battle, they're not going to do too well. Like, even against stuff like the Uruk pikes of Mordor, because there are more of them, these guys are often going to end up losing. So you need to be careful with them, despite the fact they're cheap and you can mass them pretty easily. You gotta be careful. And then we'll move on to the skirmishers. We'll do the mounted units last. First of all, you got the Southron archers. I've already gone through both the other two units of archers, and excuse me. These guys are obviously the best. They're pretty cheap still, and that's tends to be HARAD's thing. Like I did mention before in the runic overview that Rune are closer to the kingdoms of men with regards to their quality over quantity approach, and HARAD are a bit closer to the orcs on like the scale between factions, and that's true in the fact that HARAD, you want to be able to mass up units, but each individual unit doesn't have many men in it. So it's kind of like a sort of weird mix of quality and quantity provided you get the composition right. And as far as these archers go, it's kind of the same story. They're decent, but they're not going to win a straight up battle. You need to, generally speaking, overwhelm your opponent. And I don't know if the Southron archers do that particularly well, but they will give you a decent archer presence on the field. Like 8 missile damage is not too bad, although it's not going to win against the heavily armoured Kingdoms of Men archers, nor will it win against the runic archers, but it's not bad. It's not bad for their price, and that's, again, what HARAD do very, very well. They also have a very good javelin unit. Now these guys, I think, are the best javelin unit in the game. I might be wrong about that. The Balcloth tribesmen of Rune are also pretty good, but I think these guys are better. And this is maybe the first instance where HARAD have got a notable advantage, but it is javelins, so it's generally only going to be seen in siege battles and used effectively in siege battles anyway. Using these guys effectively on a field battle is very, very difficult because their range is not very good and they can be focused down by composite bows and even crossbows. So while they are very damaging, they're also very difficult to use outside of a siege battle. They're not terrible in melee either. Their attack is trash, but their defense is pretty good. So defensively in a siege, you're always going to see Muhad tribesmen, I would have thought. Now moving on to probably the best part. Oh no, wait, there's the Serpent Guard, isn't there? These guys essentially are about equal to the Loke Flag Rim, and that's pretty high. Like, I ran a test before doing this to make sure. The Serpent Guard lost, but only one Loke Flag Rim was still standing. So these guys can be viewed really as the one unit of genuine quality that HARAD's infantry has, or at least their foot troops have. But I think that HARAD's infantry kind of overly depends on these guys, because you can't mass these guys up in the same way you can mass up the rest of your army. And unlike Mordor, you don't have the numbers to sort of render that irrelevant. And they do have the mounted version as well. Again, this is going to be similar to pretty much every version of the mounted cav, like mounted Swan Knights, Loke Innes Rim. You know, what was the Dale version again? The Earls. That's the sort of ballpark you're going to be playing with these guys, and it is something they have which the likes of Rohan and Eriador don't have. So it is a big point in HARAD's favour that they have these. If they didn't have the Serpent Guard, they would be much lower on the faction power list, really. They might even be one of the worst. Their cav in general across the board is pretty darn good. Their lancers, not too bad. Southron lancers, good low tier cav. They have missile cav as well. So they have that. These guys are intriguing. There's a camel unit. They don't have a lot of speed, but they're essentially an anti-cavalry missile unit. When they throw their javelins into horses, very quickly horses will break. Now the problem with these guys is they are pretty expensive for a unit that you're going to use for a very specific task. But I think these guys can be used very effectively in a field battle. Particularly if you're up against someone like Rohan, who you know is going to bring a lot of cav. Bring these guys to zone them out along with your Southron warband, and you're going to do very well for yourself. And that brings us on to a unit which may or may not be allowed in your game, and that is of course the mumakil. Now, you might be wondering why these guys aren't banned all the time, and I have been allowed to use these guys a few times, as I'm sure you've noticed if you've gone back a few videos, but the reason is these guys can be countered pretty hard by ballista. One ballista shot is going to kill one of these guys, and there is only 6 in each unit, I believe. So, while the mumakil are obviously going to aim for a ballista, chances are you can kill quite a lot of them before they get there, provided you're facing off against a ballista, of course. And the other thing is fire arrows, which can panic mumakil, make them run amok, and that will make you lose control of them, and they will often just run around the perimeter of the battlefield when that happens. And also, as soon as they start running amok, they will start doing damage to your own troops, which means if they run through your line as they're panicking, that's going to crush you. And in that situation, you're going to have wasted 4,200 florins, and that increases after just 1 to 4,650, so that's a huge amount of your money you're potentially spending to do a lot of damage to yourself. Now, of course, mumakil do come with the caveat of being exceedingly powerful. They can just smash through enemy lines over and over again. So there is a point where I can see why these guys would be banned in certain games, but you've got to remember these guys can be countered. So you could be allowed to use these guys. And in fact, I will use one unit of them just to show, once again, how strong they can really be. So let's build my army. Let me see. Well, we're going to want, I think, 3 Serpent Guard. Being allowed to have 3 Serpent Guard before the price increases is another thing that is pretty good about HARAD. It also demonstrates the fact that you're going to need these guys, because it's allowing you to have 3 elite infantry before the price increase. We'll have a mumakil unit, of course. We'll have a unit of 5 pikes at the front. 3 archers. We don't really need a great deal of archers because the mumakil themselves have archers which kind of automatically do their thing as you charge through the lines, which is very, very nice indeed. Well, do we want more? We'll have 1 more. We'll have some trollmen. 4 units of trollmen. Yeah, that's pretty good. And we'll have 3 units of Hashari. We won't bring any Southron Warband because I don't think we're going to need them. As far as upgrades go, we'll put on upgrades onto my mumakil and upgrades onto my Serpent Guard. Everything else I think I'm just going to leave as standard. We'll have a silver chevron on my general. Actually, how many chevrons can we put on the mumakil? Not many, no. Only 1. Okay, that'll do. Oof, man. It has been a long day. But I didn't post any videos yesterday, so I thought I might need to do this one today. I do like HARAD, but I think I like them a little bit more than they deserve. I think that is very possible. Okay, this map is a little bit weird. Do I want to deploy back or forwards? I think we're going to deploy forwards. Let the enemy come to me, let them weaken themselves, and then I'll just break them with my mumakil. The fact that I have mumakil in an army this large means this is probably not even going to be close, but I will hold my mumakil back until the end, just so that I can demonstrate HARAD's strengths and weaknesses. Guard mode. And the archers. Do I want the Hashari? No, actually I want the trollmen as my secondary line. And we'll have my general behind my archers, of course. This isn't the best terrain to deploy on, but this is a bumpy map, so... right. We'll have a unit of Hashari here, I think. Just in front of these. We're going to want them pointing that way. They're kind of inside one another, but... Come on. No, they don't want to move. Okay, we'll just leave them there. I guess we're going to want these guys over here. And then the mumakil can... They can go way back there for the moment, because again, I don't want to really show them off until the time is right. Put some stakes in the ground. Again, sorry if I'm a bit out of sorts, but it has been quite a tiring day. But I like the design of HARAD as well. Like the Hashari are a very cool looking unit with their twin swords and their masks. And while wooden armor is maybe not the best thing, the HARAD units do look the part. They're my guilty pleasure faction, I suppose. Like if I was gonna choose a faction based on how effective they were, HARAD wouldn't be my first choice. Unless of course I was allowed to use these guys. In which case they absolutely would be my favourite faction. HARAD with mumakil, OP. But I think the reason why I would be tempted to allow at least one mumakil, maybe put a limit of one mumakil on a field battle, but because they can be so easily countered and because they are so expensive, unlike say the spiders, which are a unit which are extremely cost effective and extremely overpowered and you can't really counter them too easily. Whereas these guys could potentially backfire. I don't know if they're the most expensive unit in the game. I think they might be. I think these guys are more expensive than the Balrog. More expensive than Sauron as well. So that kind of makes up for it. I think stuff like Sauron and the Balrog would be allowed in more battles if it was more expensive. Unfortunately, this map is quite large and they're going to take a long time getting here, so I think actually what I'm going to do is destroy Rohan with the mumakil. Hold fire. And we shall now demonstrate the power of this unit. The Serpent Guard are a cool looking heavy infantry unit as well. Their scimitars and their round shields and their helms. Very Middle Eastern medieval feel to this faction, in a good way. Let me see. Well, they've got their Yawling Militia in the middle, and there go my mumakil archers. Okay, so let's charge through. As you can tell, I think the enemy doesn't really know what to do in the face of the mumakil. They will die off eventually, but they take some killing. And generally speaking, you need archers. You do need to micro them pretty hard though, like you need to tell them to charge through lines, otherwise they will kind of just sit there. They're still eager, bless them. The Yawling Militia are going to break if they stay there like that. I haven't done huge amounts of damage, but certainly you can tell that with this level of disruption, if I were to move my army over here, and this was a full-sized Rohirrim army, I would be really cleaving through them. The mumakil are an extremely high investment though, so you do need to be careful with them, more so than this. Particularly if there are enemy archers around with flaming ammo. You're going to waste them mostly. And not all of these guys that they're running over are actually dying. A lot of them are just falling over, but you know, the damage that we're doing is significant. Certainly in terms of morale damage, I would have thought. Such a cool unit. I'd say in terms of power, they're probably similar to the Sylvan Elves Ents, which again we'll get to. Because the Ents can be panicked by fire arrows and they have like genuine weaknesses for their price point. whereas something like the spiders really don't, or Sauron, or the Balrog, and also stuff like the Balrog will end up crashing a big multiplayer battle. These guys could do that as well, so that's worth like bearing in mind. They're so big that they might crash battles, but something else also, that these guys will not obviously be able to be used in siege battles because they're too big to fit through gates, so whether you're defending or attacking, these guys are going to be next to useless, so unfortunately there's going to be no replicating the Battle of Minas Tirith from the movies with Haradrim Mumakil. As you can see though, I haven't actually done a huge amount of damage to the Rohan army. Like, there are dead bodies around, but not whole units worth. Even the militia have not broke. Right, and now the Orcs of Gundabad are here. Wondering how many kills I can get just using these guys. It's a lot of damage we're doing. This unit of Royal Guard has taken some significant casualties. Getting right through that bunch there. It's a nice amount of kills. Last battle I played with mumakil, one of the units I brought got nearly 900 kills. Naturally, it was one of the only units I brought. I think I had 2 units of mumakil and 5 units of infantry, assorted infantry. Or was it 6? Might have been 6 actually. And 3 of those units were Haradrim Spearmen, which are a terrible, terrible unit. Okay, so the enemy are on their way, so I think it is actually best if I pull my mumakil back and tend to my main line. Fire at will with my South-run archers. That's Mordor. Looks like Mordor are actually not going to engage my main pike line, which is kind of problematic. We're going to have to sort of move our line over a little bit. Rohan has been significantly damaged, but I don't know, like, I got a chevron on my mumakil. Let's go up here with them. Just back up my main army. This isn't the best position, to be honest. I should have deployed a little bit more wisely. This does give them more of a chance, I suppose, which they're going to need. With these guys, I don't think they have really any way of killing these guys without any ranged presence, so it was unfair of me to bring them, but I felt like they deserved a showcase. In this scenario, anyway. Oh, come on, guys. Need to attack at some point. They are taking their time. Right, okay, my archers are in range, so that will be fine. Snaga Stalkers. I think I'm just going to send my mumakil charging through the Gundabad ranks. Their troops are, and I speak from experience, very easy to break. Although it looks like these Snaga Stalkers are going to break long before my mumakil get there, because they're being shredded by my South-run archers. Let's see, what are Mordor doing? Well, actually, you know what? Swing the mumakil over here and come in from the side. Charge through. Don't believe they're going to be able to get through my pikes. This is going to be a risky sort of redeployment, but I think we'll be okay. Those are orc maulers. I think it's actually best if you guys target units you can see more easily. Ah, excellent. So, charge over there, please. Defeat seems certain. They could flank around, so I think it's probably a good idea if we move some Hashari over. These guys are being attacked by my own archers, so let's pull them back. Rohan still don't want to rejoin the fight. Mumakil just wrecking havoc down in that little valley. I like this map. We haven't actually played it online a great deal. I think I've only played it once, but in an actual online game. But I do like this battle just because of the differing terrain. Pretty difficult to balance, though, I will admit. Okay, doing a decent amount of damage to the Orc Maulers. One of my units of Mumakil has fallen behind. You will often find this, and then they will often die. Although he seems to just be charging through the ranks at the moment. Aha, right. You guys coming in from the side, are you? You guys are snugger though, so you're going to rout pretty much immediately. Orc Marauders. Probably capable of beating the Hashari in combat. But I will just charge the Hashari in. The Mumakil doing an incredible amount of damage. Just the amount of disruption they cause is probably the best thing in a situation like this. You guys have taken a few casualties. Seem to be fine though. Affordability, but not compromising on quality. That seems to be the HARAD way. Goblin Band. Charge in my Serpent Guard, why not? Just keep running around with my Mumakil in their ranks. Rohans still have not returned. Although it looks like they're beginning to. Orc Marauders are routing a unit of 200. Needless to say, the Mumakil will cause fear. In a similar fashion to the Trolls. Victory is a distinct possibility over here though, for the Goblin Band. But I don't know against what, because both units of mine over there victory seems certain for them as well. Huge amounts of routing troops. Look at that. That's a big mass of units. You guys go down through them actually. The pikes holding their ground. Just charge into the side of those Orc Raiders. Get rid of them. Haven't even needed to commit my Trollman, but I will now. I'll just charge outwards. These guys are pretty damned resilient. Oh, I just lost one of my Mumakil. They aren't invincible. They certainly are not. But the amount of kills they're getting certainly makes up for it. They just plow over units. Send forward another unit of Hashari, I think. Well, this blob over here isn't doing too badly. I think we'll have to send in my general. Another unit of Serpent Guard. Well, we'll go up here. Where are Rohan? Now they're coming back. Still haven't run out of ammo. Good amount of ammo on the South Run Archers. A lot of that has to do with the fact they're a smaller unit. Obviously the Orc Archers will expend their ammo much faster because there are more. Actually no, that's not true most cases, is it?
Behold our worthless foe. See how their general turns tail and flees like a whipped dog.
Well, there we go. Yeah, I guess gauging how much ammo each particular archer unit has is always kind of awkward, because you don't really know whether it's just because they have less in their units, such as the Sindar archers, or whether they just have less ammo. Like, I know the Misty Mountains heavy goblin archers don't have as much ammo as a regular unit of archers has. Those Snaga are not going to beat the Trollman. Ugh. I think I'm getting a bit of a cold, which is unfortunate.
For the moment, the fickle smile of fortune shines upon us. Pray, this is a portent of a victory.
Yep, they are routing. The Shari, which are going very far away.
They run like children. Scour them from the field.
Yawling Militia are...
Half the enemy force remains.
Well, the Rohan army still hasn't broken. Let's change that. All the orcs are breaking though. No great surprise there, really. I'm impressed they managed to kill one of my mumakil, to be honest. Again, this maybe wasn't like a hugely scientific overview of HARAD, because I did bring a unit which at least half the time in a field battle is going to be not going to be allowed. There's the Nazgul being poked to death by my pikemen. But generally speaking, the philosophy behind HARAD is as simple as I've mentioned. It's affordable quality, which you might think, well, that's all you ever want in this sort of game, which is true to an extent, but you've got to remember, in a quality battle where it's only your elite infantry facing off against one another, or your pikes, like, these guys are good, and they will do the job of pikes very well, but they are not going to beat guards of Osgiliath in a choke point, which is kind of where the problem with HARAD comes, really. They don't have enough men in each unit to really overwhelm the enemy, but neither do they possess the quality to beat them in single combat, whereas Rune do. Having said that, HARAD do have a greater variety of tools, I believe, at their disposal to kind of offset their own weakness, which is why I like them. You know, mumakil notwithstanding, their camels with their javelins are very good at dealing with cav. And I like them a lot for that because, you know, I'm not the best cav user in this game, and I prefer to just zone them out and let my infantry do the work, which in Third Age is probably the way to go because infantry is very, very strong. But, you know, everything to do with HARAD, it seems like they have at least an answer for everything. There's the Nazgul. In fact, you know what? We'll and that is really important, the fact that you have the options in your army. Like, too many armies don't have enough options, in my opinion.
The enemy are badly bloodied. They have lost half their men.
Like, a good example of an army with not enough options would clearly be the Orcs of the Misty Mountains. Their roster is far too small, and it really gets in the way of them being able to do a great deal other than rush. But I don't know. There are certainly better factions than HARAD, but it won't stop me from liking them. What units are there still on the field? I guess just these guys, right? We'll just have to up the speed until the Nazgul die. They take a long time dying unless the units that are fighting them are very elite. Let's send back a unit of Trollmen. That should finish them all. Just look at the amount of troops that are around them, they still won't die. There we go. Ooh, yeah, 50 kills. The mumakil did tilt this battle into being horrendously lopsided, but let's have a look regardless. Yep, 882 kills on the mumakil. 0 kills on a unit of Serpent Guard, I guess that was the one that I deployed last. 252 in the one that was in sustained melee though, so it goes to show that they're very good at what they do if you're relying on them. And as HARAD, generally speaking, you're going to be relying on the Serpent Guard to be your quality center. The pikemen, honestly, not getting a lot of kills, but then that was because a lot of the units were terrified by the time they got there by the mumakil. Generally speaking, these guys will be just as effective at doing a pikeman's job against infantry as any other pike unit, but against other pikes is where the problem is going to come in, I think. I guess maybe they could be seen as level with Uruk halberds of Mordor, but stuff like Uruk-hai pikemen or guards of Osgiliath or Arnor pikemen are going to be superior to these guys. South-run archers, pretty decent, affordable archers, easy to mass, which can be the key to winning the skirmisher fight, so that's worth bearing in mind. Trollmen of HARAD, too easy to outnumber in a lot of situations in my opinion, but still very damaging, hard to kill off unless you surround them. As long as you support these guys with maybe lesser infantry or even a Serpent Guard unit, they're going to do very well. And the Hashari again, kind of glass cannons, do a lot of damage, but too easy to kill in my opinion. So yes, that's HARAD, a faction I like a great deal. Now, anyways, I do plan on uploading some online multiplayer siege battles in the future. We do have a few issues to iron out with regards to balancing the teams and the money, and also making it so that the frame rate doesn't go to hell when certain people play it, but I will be planning on uploading a few more of those because it does come to my immediate attention that I am running out of factions and I will need to upload something other than just these. So that is the plan. I will be uploading some more online siege battles, maybe a few river crossings and some pitch battles as well. So that will be the plan, but again it's coordinating it and setting it up so it won't be every day that those happen, but they will be intermingled with the remaining faction overviews. And yeah, I mean, we might do some scenarios as well if we can get those sorted out. So I don't know what faction will be next. In fact, I do. I think we'll do Eriador next. So that will be the next faction overview. Hopefully there'll be some siege battles coming out as well. So yeah, pretty full schedule, I think.